Hey guys, it's Sunray, and welcome back to the My So-Called Thoughts podcast. Welcome. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I am Sunray, and I'm your host. I'm a wife, mom, and musician. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is a podcast. Of course, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's all of my thoughts, my so-called thoughts. We talk about different things that we deal with in life, different things that we're going through, different things that we're healing from or dealing with, different things in society, all the stuff that I think about, and just stuff that I feel like everybody is thinking about, but like nobody wants to like acknowledge or talk about. So that's what we talk about here. If it's your first time, welcome again. Just so you know, depending on wherever you're listening to the podcast, you can stream the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please subscribe to your platform of choice. Leave a like, a comment, a review, all that good stuff. Also follow the Instagram page at My So-Called Thoughts Pod. All right. But let's just get right into it today. If it is your first time, then you will learn that I just kind of love diving right in. I don't like to waste time. I just kind of like to hop right into the topic at hand. So I got to be honest, while I'm recording this podcast, I don't really know what I'm calling this episode. But there will be a title. Rest assured there will be a title, of course. But obviously, we've got our topic for today. I just don't really know how I want to articulate the title. But I'll obviously make up my mind by the time you're listening to this. But the point is, and the questions that I have, um, you know, it wouldn't be my so-called thoughts if we somehow didn't bring up society, right? And how I sometimes have a distaste for it. But, I've been really thinking about the concept of, do we live in a self-absorbed society? And I am definitely specifically talking about Western civilization, and I will get more into that shortly. But I've just been thinking about this because recently my pastor preached a message, and I'll get into that shortly as well, that really inspired me and really made me start asking myself questions and really made me kind of challenge myself. And then I just kind of started thinking about this in like the grand scheme of things and how the world works and just society and everyday life and stuff. So that's why I wanted to talk about it, because it really got me thinking, my so-called thoughts. Lame, I know. But it really got me thinking. And, the question of, do we live in a self-absorbed society? Obviously, you may say like, yeah, that's easy to answer, or no, whatever. But, I just feel like we live in this me culture. And if you know anything, everyone is always talking about, I got to put me first. I don't know if you've heard that like sound bite that was all over Instagram and TikTok. I got to put me first. I got to put me first. And it's like a really funny thing. But, and I know we joke about that, obviously. And I know that a lot of the people that have, made those little videos will be talking about something in their life where they have to choose themselves over whatever. And I obviously understand that, because of course this conversation is not so much about like negating like physical health, physical well-being, mental health, mental well-being, or like taking care of yourself. That's not really kind of like the question that I'm asking, because I'm definitely a strong advocate of those things. And if you listen to this podcast, you know that. I'm specifically talking about like being self-absorbed, being so self-absorbed that we like either miss out on things in life that we could have had, or we miss out on just different things, like, because we're too busy chasing this me thing, chasing something that like will never fulfill us, because we're trying to like fulfill ourselves, and be validated in who we are so bad that we just kind of end up, again, we cancel ourselves out from some things in this life that are, really beautiful, and just things that we could have in life. And it just seems as though in our society, again, specifically like Western civilization, people have become more and more selfish. People have began isolating themselves. People are obsessed with themselves. And of course, I'm always like dogging social media. um, and again, I said this last episode, I don't hate social media. I hate what people have turned it into. But, social media has made this worse, this whole me, mentality. It's all about checking how you look for the photo. First, let me take a selfie. Who remembers that, right? Which I'm not saying that, selfies and stuff is bad, but, it's just become about, you got to check yourself in the mirror, and I find myself looking like every time I pass a mirror, like it's like I have to look at myself and walk past. And you may be like, duh, everybody does that. Like, what's the big deal? Well, I heard this perspective. You may have heard of Dove Cameron. She came from Disney Channel. She was in that movie, The Descendants. But now she's obviously out of Disney Channel and she makes music and, she's kind of releasing more. Obviously, she's an adult now, so she's releasing more like adult music. And she was doing an interview on the Zach Sang show, I believe. And I really like listening to her. She's very intellectual and I really have not heard many people in the entertainment as she talk the way that she does and how she articulates things and how she like presents herself. And, she was talking about how like she was at this place in her life where she was like struggling and like she couldn't look at mirrors and she had to take all the mirrors out of her house. And when I first heard that, like honestly, I'm gonna say that's what kind of attracted me to the interview because I sometimes like listen to her music or like listen to interviews. When I saw that like on the headline, I was like, what in the world is wrong with this chick? But then I was like, I gotta listen to her like stance on this. Like why? Like what like Hollywood people they begin weird. So I'm like, what weirdness is going on, right? But she was talking about like how it wasn't good for her mental health, like always like staring at herself and like analyzing herself. Like nothing was coming positively out of it, if that makes any sense. And she said that she had a friend that was kind of like doing the same thing with her and I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. Like, go watch the interview or go listen to it. I'm sure if you type in like Dove Cameron mirrors, like it'll come up. But like her friend was even like, why do we always have to like stare at ourselves and analyze ourselves and like pick at ourselves? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? Like, is that normal? And, again, like the first thing that attracted me to the interview or listening to it was that whole, mirror headline. But then I started thinking about that and she talked about it a little more. I'm just kind of like paraphrasing it. But I was like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, that's interesting. Why do we do that? You know what I mean? Like, why do we stare at ourselves for hours on end getting ready? I know women do this more, but, or most of the time women do this more. Sometimes men can do it. I don't know. But, why do we like obsess over ourselves? Like, is that normal? Like, is that like, I don't know, like it just made me think because it was such a weird perspective I'd never heard of that I had to kind of ponder on it, you know? Like, why do I have to like constantly check if I'm good in the mirror? You know what I mean? And like, what am I looking for? Like, what tells me that I'm good? Like, I know that this podcast is going to sound like one of those like I don't even know what word to use, but it's just gonna sound like one of those like deep podcasts where people like ask like those questions and they're like they ask like obviously I don't smoke, but I don't know if you've ever seen like on Twitter and different places where you ask like these weird questions when you're high. Obviously, like I said, I don't smoke, but I feel like this is going to be one of those conversations, but I promise it's all going to make sense when I get to it. But again, I'm just sharing my thoughts and that's what this podcast is about. But back to the subject at hand. I just started thinking about this of like just, why do we become obsessed with ourselves? Like why do I need to look at myself? Like what am I looking for? Like what am I searching for to make myself feel good about myself when I look in the mirror, or if I'm checking myself on my phone, or like when I'm taking pictures, and how us women like we'll take 100 pictures and none of them are good enough. And even though like our friend or significant other would be like, no, you look beautiful or whatever, I just think about that. Like, what is that in us? And you may say, oh, it's just insecurity. But my point is like, where does this come from? Like, where does that definition of being good enough, like, who was setting that? You know what I mean? And I started thinking about like other cultures all over the world and how like other cultures, some have social media, some don't. And they live their lives differently. And of course, as I mentioned, I have nothing against like, self-reflection and holding yourself accountable and, just all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And being self-aware. I think that that's very important. Um, but then I think about like the time that we spend like checking ourselves and just like even just checking our like obsessing over our emotions and stuff. Like, is there more to life? I was watching Selena Gomez's new documentary, My Mind and Me. Oh, that was pretty good. She had traveled to Kenya with this company. Is it we or it's just some company that does like missionary and different like work in different countries. She normally travels with them and does work in these countries. And Selena was talking to like a young girl who was around like college age who was struggling with her mental health. I will just give a trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about some tough stuff in just a second. So if you can't listen to it, please check out another podcast or skip ahead. But trigger warning, she was talking about how she wanted to take her life. And, what led her not to do that was thinking about how she was the firstborn in her family. And if she did that, what example would she be setting to her family? And like that was so inspiring to me. Like if you think about it, like she decided to keep her life for her family. Like in a moment of, turmoil and she was going to end it all, she thought of her family and said, I can't do this to them. She found purpose in that, and she found purpose in her life and wanted to better herself for others. And it's like how I had to think like how often do we see this in Western civilization? I've seen people making large life decisions without considering the people around them. And I'm not saying that like you need to think about, there are some circumstances where, you do have to take care of your well-being and you have to make a decision like for yourself. But I'm talking about like I've seen people like chase after stuff and have like selfish desires and like just negate everybody else around them because they want to be selfish, because they want some type of validation, they want some type of approval, and they want to feel good about themselves that they'll negate other people. And then they end up, down a spiral of never knowing what they want in life and never settling on anything because they were so self-absorbed and they don't even realize it. And I feel like this is a concept that not a lot of people are talking about. And, people don't want to talk about this. Have you ever stopped to think, like, why am I so obsessed with this part of my body? Why am I so obsessed with this part of myself? Like, just really think about it for a minute. Like, have you ever thought, like, why am I obsessed with my nose that I hate? Because who told you to hate your nose? Like, the purpose of your nose is to smell. And I know that obviously I'm a woman and every women have insecurities and we pick it up. I'm not talking about like those little things that we do and wanting to wear the makeup and all that type of stuff. I'm not even hating on those that have gotten plastic surgery because I don't care. Spend your money and spend your time however you want to. I don't care. But, my point is like, where are these desires coming from? Like, where are we getting this information? Because the truth is that we are not innately born with those desires. Like, we're not. We are innately born with wanting and like desiring community and wanting to love other people. But it's like we've morphed into the society that makes you want to put yourself first so badly that you negate certain aspects of your life, or you add stress to your life, or you waste time on chasing things just to fulfill, quote unquote, yourself. But like, again, what is that? And I'm not saying, of course, that you can't fulfill yourself or that you shouldn't be happy or that you shouldn't feel secure in who you are. I'm a big advocate for those things. But again, like what I'm saying is that there are certain things in life that, as a society, we find security in when it's like we shouldn't, or we don't have to, or the truth is that like, because society is all me, we feel like we have to be that way. And, I got to put myself first. So I've got to do this. I got to I gotta change this. It's all about me, 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 me. You know, why do we need to feel secure with a body part? Like, what is that desire and where does it come from? Why do we need to feel secure in not feeling left out of partying? Why do we need to feel secure in, who we are if we just did this? Like, yes, we need to be secure in who we are, but why is it, I will be secure with myself if I just did dot, dot, dot. Because, of course, there's nothing wrong with having certain goals. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do certain things. Like, oh, yeah, I want to go to college and I want to do this. And that'll be a big accomplishment for me. Or I want to start a family. Like, those are just natural, desires that we have in life. But some people are, I would just be happy if dot, dot, dot. And it's this endless pursuit of trying to fulfill who we are with, like, outside things. And, like, that's what I'm trying to say, like, where our validation should not come from that. So I'm going to bring up these YouTubers. I've been watching them for years. They're sisters, and I'm not going to say their names because I just don't feel like it. I just don't feel like pointing them out because I'm more so just trying to give an example out of them. And I obviously doubt anyone's ever going to listen to this. Maybe you'll know exactly who I'm talking about, but I just don't feel like, singling them out or anything like that. But anyway, they've been on YouTube for like a decade, and they're my age, so they're 28, or they're gonna be turning 28 or something. They're like either a few months younger than me or a year or whatever. So whatever. And of course, they've gone through various things in life, and they've been like a part of YouTube, the entertainment industry, like since high school for a very, very long time. So they were both in relationships. One had a boyfriend, one was engaged to their fiance. And earlier this year, they both ended their long-term relationships. Both were in relationships for like 5+ years with their significant others. And like I said, one of them was engaged. And, they haven't really come out to like explain like really, really what happened. And I'm not a person that thinks that like people in the entertainment industry have to explain that stuff. That's not the point. They just haven't come out. So like I can't say for sure like what actually like innately happened. I'm not sure. But, obviously, if you're in a relationship and you're no longer in love, or the relationship was toxic or just wasn't right, and especially if you're engaged and it's just not, it ain't clicking, like by all means, like don't stay in that relationship. You know what I mean? Like if you're just like, look, I am not in love with this person anymore, or we are just butting heads, we don't get along. I'm just not, or I'm not ready to get married or whatever. Like, don't stay in that relationship. Like, please don't. You're just going to hurt yourself and the other person. I support that, and I support anyone that needs to get out of those situations because we've all been there, right? That's obvious. And I saw them go through that, and I'm like, man, like I've been watching them for years. I knew them before they were in these relationships, and now they're out of them. And I'm like, well, dang, like maybe those relationships weren't right. And, hey, it's better to find out now than you're married and like 45 with kids, right? So, good. Maybe they didn't see eye to eye. Maybe they were just going in different directions in life because, their significant others were not really as into the entertainment industry. And I know that could be tough. So, right. Maybe it just wasn't right. That's the vibe I got at the time. And that was it. Okay, whatever. Right. I don't care. But consequently enough, one of the sisters, the one that just had a boyfriend, she wasn't engaged. She posted a TikTok of her taking a shot and kissing somebody else. And someone commented on it and said, yeah, I don't blame so-and-so, her ex, for leaving. Now, of course, I'm sure she has gotten so many different comments and hate comments throughout the years, and she could have honestly just ignored that comment. But nope, she did not. She said, I don't blame me for leaving. I had life and other experiences to live. So then I'm like, okay, hold on a second. And some other people literally said what I'm about to say. She literally alluded, because she did do a video kind of talking about it a little bit, but she didn't like get into like the specifics or like when it actually happened and all that stuff. But I'm like, hold on. You literally alluded that you guys were breaking up because the relationship just wasn't working. You guys were going in two different directions and it wasn't right. Okay, boo boo ah, right? Fine. But now you're alluding to like you just wanted to break up because you just wanted to have life experiences and you just wanted to make out with other people on TikTok. Like, huh? Like and someone commented it's like, you can have life experiences and still be with your partner. And I was just like, what? Excuse me? And like, it seems to me, and again, they're just an example. I wish them the best and I don't really care, obviously, what they do. But it just seems to me that like, you're saying I have more life to live. What are you talking about? What life do you need to live so bad? Partying? Making out with other people? Getting drunk? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why do you need that? Now, I'm not knocking anybody that just likes to do that for fun. You do whatever you want to do. At least in America, this is a free country, so I don't care. But why do you need to do that? And she's as if she's missing out on something, as if there's something that she needs to be fulfilled with in this world. And after this, I kind of was thinking about other videos. I'm like, you know what? She's actually said that a couple times since the breakup and since her kind of first alluding to like, hey, we just broke up because it wasn't right. And she's alluded to other things and making statements like talking about how she just needs to be herself and she's been holding back. And, you know, maybe she was. I've been in a relationship before where I was not myself and I was holding myself back. So, like, I understand that. We shouldn't be in that position. But, and also we should be able to be 100% ourselves at all times, especially when we're in a relationship with somebody. But again, like this type of behavior, in my opinion, it just connects to the point I'm trying to make. Her desire to feel like she needs to live some sort of life. Where is that coming from? Like, do we cancel ourselves out from what we have? Like hypothetically, again, maybe that relationship was toxic and that's why she had to bounce. But hypothetically, what if that relationship was really good? But she just was like, I got to do all this. I got to do all this because that's what'll make me happy. I got to go party. I got to travel. I got to do all this stuff. And I don't want to do it with you. I want to do it alone. Now, I'm not saying that she should have stayed. I'm not saying because maybe you should be alone because some people just shouldn't be in relationships. But when you allude to like, oh, I've got life to live, as if you can't be in a relationship and do that, is that self-absorbed? Like, this is the questions that I'm asking. Like, are you actually just really obsessed with yourself? But people wouldn't say that. People wouldn't say, oh, they're obsessed with themselves. She's just putting herself first. But if you were in a happy and healthy relationship, like, again, where are we getting this from? Where are we getting this from that we have to put ourselves first so much that we got to put somebody else down? We got to remove somebody from the other picture because we've got life to live. You know, and again, maybe she shouldn't have stayed with him. But this validation to have this and that, I just think that it connects with being self-absorbed. Now, I'm not calling her self-absorbed. I'm not calling anybody self-absorbed. I'm more so saying, like, is this a characteristic that us as a society have began to have? That we are self-absorbed with ourselves, that we make these large life decisions because we're trying to validate who we are. And we're trying to fill holes that we have. And we're trying to check off boxes so that we can feel good about ourselves. Versus just trying to live a happy and healthy life the best way that we can and loving on others and, you know, distancing ourselves from the people that we don't need to be around, but just living life carefree and living life with our heart on our sleeves and, you know, just in the meantime, loving who we are enough to be secure in who we are that we don't have to say, oh, I got to put me first. I hope that makes sense. You know, because again, when you go to these third world countries where people only have like their family, their jobs, their home, and their joy, like these people seem to be so much more fulfilled. Like, look it up. You hear it all the time. You see these different interviews in these other countries. But in Western civilization, we search for validations, and what seems like what other people can get, you know, give to us, and what we can get from other people. Like, I want to go to that party. It's going to make me feel better about who I am. I need to change this body part because, you know, society is into this type of body part now. And it's just going to make me feel so much better about myself. But what if security is, and true security in who we are is finding love within our communities and in our families that we know that we are who we are and we are playing our role in society. And by role, I just mean like if you are that activist, you're giving your part in your community. If you are that nurse, then you're doing your part and you're loving life. I hate to say this, but the fact that Gen Z, one of the number one jobs, I've seen it on multiple occasions, that they have quizzed or asked Gen Z what they want to be when they grow up or whatever. And it seems to be that the number one job is to be an influencer. Now, I'm not hating on being an influencer because I don't think there's anything wrong with being an influencer. We know a lot of influencers make really good money, and maybe that's what they're striving for. Maybe they just want a good paying job. And if that's what you want to be, then, there's no problem with that. But I'm just wondering, like, why is that? Like, what is driving the desires? Because if you watch any influencer that is real, they will tell you that they constantly have to look at themselves all day. They constantly have to produce out content and not like be obsessed with themselves, but they constantly have to like promote who they are. And it's interesting, like, with the fame and all that type of stuff, like, why does Gen Z want that? Like, am I the only one that's thinking about this stuff? I have found myself being so vain, thinking only of myself and not even realizing it. Now, again, I have to have self-respect for myself. I have to care about myself. I have to believe in myself. And, I have to take care of myself, obviously to a certain extent. But what I truly believe is that we should take care of ourselves. Obviously, so that we can, be happy and function, we could be healthy. But we should also want to do our best for ourselves, for others. Not to, I'm going to bring up my faith, I bring it up here and there, but like Jesus said to love your neighbor as you love yourself. The disciples said, what is the greatest commandment? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So obviously do my part to care for who I am, to take care of myself, but to love my neighbor. That's what he told us to do. Because they asked him, what is the greatest commandment? We should be doing this for the people that we love. I don't hear this message often. All I hear is that you got to put yourself first, only care about yourself, and then you'll be happy. Forget everybody else. You don't need them. I see it all the time, especially on social media. That's what society is telling us to do. And then again, you get caught up in obsessing over yourself, your appearance, stuff like that. Now, I love makeup. I love fashion so much. But that's more of like creativity. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it because I'm obsessed with what I look like. I used to be like that. But I had to check myself. Again, like unbeknownst to ourselves, we begin to obsess over what we think society says that is acceptable. And this me persona, it came from society itself. Like who said this? Who put this out there? Who started this? I've talked about Kylie Jenner, okay? I've talked about her before in the podcast. No hate. Hey, she's a successful businesswoman. I'm not dogging her, but I hate to say she's just a good example for a lot of the stuff I talk about that's wrong with society, unfortunately. But I wish her the best. God bless her. But like, let's be real. Who told her that she needed to have a full-on body transformation? Because I don't care what she says. She did her whole body. She did not just get She did not just get filler. I grew up when she was, she's younger than me, when she was going through her like Tumblr phase. Who remembers that? Where she had like her black and blue hair, and she did not look like that at all. And I don't care what you say, like you do not develop all of a sudden like that. It's not possible. And if she'll never admit it, but I guarantee you if she ever admitted it, she would say that she did all of it to make herself happy. But like, really think about this. Imagine being so consumed and on your mind, all you can think about is how you look. Now, I'm not coming at people with body dysmorphia. I've talked about that on this podcast. That is not what this is. And I don't know if she has that, but let's just say in the off chance that she doesn't. Imagine being so consumed with how you look based off of society standards, right? Because society standards are, I talked about it in my Body Image and Society Views podcast. Go check it out, of course. But, you know, based off of society standards, you end up spending thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to constantly change your appearance. And then you say it makes you happy. But again, Kylie Jenner was not born hating her lips. She was not born hating her butt or her boobs or whatever the heck else she's gotten done. So imagine being so stuck on what society says that you analyze and start to hate yourself and judge yourself and be so into yourself that you pay all that money to constantly change your body. How is that not being self-absorbed? And that's what I'm talking about, because a lot of people just think, oh, self-absorbed just means self-centered. All you think about is yourself. And I will get to it. People don't want to think that this is being self-absorbed as well. People don't want to admit that. I really started thinking about all this stuff when I had my son. Having to care for another human being, having to constantly put yourself second. It just, it just made me think. And as a mother and a wife, of course I have to take care of myself. I have to. Otherwise, I cannot be the mom and the wife that I'm supposed to be. Self-reflection, taking care of my physical health, my mental health. And also, you should feel good. You should wake up every day and be happy because you're healthy and everything, and you should be thankful. And, making sure that I do that and I have those things in check. But there's so much stuff that I used to care about. Now I don't have time to care about them because I have to put more energy in caring for my son and, of course, in caring for my marriage, caring for my husband. I have to always be thinking about the example that I'm setting for our son and how the decisions I make will affect him. I used to obsess about my appearance. So much so that I would do different things like, I have to put on this makeup, and I have to do this and I have to do that. But now that I don't have time for it, I'm a beautiful woman. And I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh, this is who I am. It's like, no, I know that my heart is pure and I'm a good person. I'm confident in who I am and who God made me to be. Constantly self-reflecting, constantly trying to hold myself accountable. And then I have my loved ones that hold me accountable. I'm a mother, and being a mother, if you're a mother, being a mother alone is beautiful. No matter how you're a mother, whether you've lost your child or not. That is the type of stuff that should matter. And if you're not a parent, you may think, well, this doesn't apply to me. I only have to care for myself, which is true. I understand that. You don't have to take care of another human being. But, what example are you setting, for your family? What precedent are you setting? What are you doing to better, your family? Are you more consumed with healing your heart so that you can be a blessing to others? Or just so you get past whatever it is so you can hop back into whatever toxic thing you're doing that makes you feel better about yourself or you think will satisfy you? Obviously, if you are a mom, you know that you may or not, I feel like every, first time moms, we kind of go through, at least I did. I know other moms have, after we have our baby, we kind of go through this identity crisis because obviously we just did something amazingly beautiful, but also kind of depending on your birth and stuff could have been traumatizing. Even if it was everything went right, it's just a crazy experience giving birth and then your body changing and all this type of stuff. And I remember after I had my son, I was struggling into getting back into feeling like myself. And, again, I used to be really into makeup more for like creativity purposes. Like there was a time where I was like obsessed with doing it for like my appearance, but then I just kind of like was liking like playing with eyeshadows and stuff. It was kind of like, fun for me. And, and then also like fashion and like all that type of stuff. And, obviously trying to find new fashion, because although my body didn't change too much, like my body still did change with pregnancy. But I was struggling with that, and I was obsessed. I became obsessed with it and obsessed with myself. And there's a scripture I just want to share, whether you're a believer or not, it could still inspire you. But it says in First Peter, chapter 3, verses 3 and 4, do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry. Because I started to become obsessed with the outside appearance. Just to throw that in there. But it continues to say, or the clothing you wear. But let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. And that touched me so much because, again, any first-time mom out there, that like sometimes you have to kind of learn yourself all over again. And if you're like me, someone that was into fashion and into makeup and stuff for, because of creativity, and I just enjoy it. Like I love playing with different clothing pieces and stuff like that. I was like, man, like, but now my clothes don't fit anymore. I didn't change that much, but my hips are different, and, my chest is different, and, all this type of stuff, and not feeling confident. But hearing that, it's like I shouldn't be obsessed with myself so much that, I'm thinking of myself only in like the outward way. But I should be focused on, like, again, bettering myself. That beauty of the gentle and quiet spirit. It's precious to God. And this pretty much brings me to the sermon that my pastor preached a couple weeks ago. It was a series that our church was doing about like the endless pursuit of more, and how we're always, constantly chasing after fulfillment in different ways. And in reality, we just have like this God-sized hole in our chest that only like God could fulfill, but we're always chasing other stuff. Now, obviously, this is for my believers, but if you're not a believer, I hope this can still inspire you. And he said something along the lines of, obviously, when we're obsessed with ourselves, and I'm just paraphrasing what he said, like he talked about kind of what I was mentioning about like being obsessed with ourselves. We know that that's a form of self-worship, self-obsession, but even self-hatred is too. And that struck a chord in me because, and I hold on. I'm not talking about, and I know he didn't mean this, depression and all that type of stuff, because he even shared that his daughter was going through some different things and it broke his heart as a father and stuff like that. But he wasn't like talking about like that. And he also wasn't diminishing it by saying that either, that like self-hatred is also a form of self-worship. He was more so just like saying this is what it is, but I'm not negating those feelings, and I don't want to negate those feelings either, because depression and anxiety is very real. Please seek help if you need it. And I don't say that, I don't take that stuff lightly. It's very serious. But it struck a chord in me because even like obsessing over your flaws, like how I was, it's a form of self-worship. And I was like, wow. For me, like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a person that is constantly worshiping themselves. I don't want to be like that. It gets messy. I want to be a person who helps others and cares for others. I want to be there for people. I want to, of course, take care of myself, but like, I want to support my family. I want to love my family. I would rather know that I was doing all that I could to be there for my family than to obsess over whatever nonsense I think I need to do for myself. And again, this isn't about neglecting yourself. This isn't about not taking care of yourself. It's more so a challenge to consider putting those, like if you have silly things that you obsess over about yourself, put it to the side. Think about how you can use that energy, to think about others and to love on other people. Think about your faith. Think about God. Think about more important things. Because society isn't talking about this. It's just me, 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 me. I can't tell you how many Facebook posts I would say that I'm just focusing on me this year. I don't have time for nobody. And people isolate themselves, and it's like, you're okay, so what are you doing it for? Because we can never, the truth is that we can never fulfill ourselves. And I had to learn that the hard way. We get fulfillment from the Lord. We get fulfillment from loving other people, giving to others. There was a time in my life where, I was struggling, and I was struggling with self-doubt and other things. And like, we all go through that, and it's super real, like I said. And I don't want to take away from anybody that's ever dealt with depression or anxiety, especially with chemical imbalances and stuff. But me personally, I was not dealing with that. What I was dealing with was completely environmental, 100%. Let's just say I had all the power in the world to like work through it. But, we become so into our own feelings. Even like my pastor said about like that self-hatred and that self-idolatry and self-idolization of ourselves, even about the negative things that that we become obsessed with it, that we don't want to change, even if that's the right thing that we need to do. And I didn't want to do that. And a lot of people won't admit that they don't want to change when they're mad and they're angry, at themselves or, other things. Because sometimes we want to remain in our mess because it's comfortable and it's familiar. I was so consumed with my own madness. And a lot of it I created in my head based off, again, what society standards were. And truth be told, I missed out on some amazing opportunities to enjoy life and enjoy the people around me. I didn't want to see the positives. This is why I say that, like, my pastor brought up, we get so consumed with ourselves sometimes that we don't even realize that even getting consumed with the negative stuff about ourselves is no better. We miss out on the love and the generosity and the hope that others want to give to us. And as well as us being able to give that to other people too. And that's kind of my main point. That's really the point of this podcast. That I think that we miss out so much on being, so consumed with ourselves and being self-absorbed. But nobody wants to talk about being self-absorbed. No one wants to admit that they're self-absorbed. And again, I probably said it a million times. I'm not talking about like focusing on your job and focusing on like, your goals and nothing like that. I'm talking about all the stuff, that we get consumed with in society, that we project onto ourselves, that we need to do because we need to party. We need to be the life of the party. We need to be loved and accepted by other people. We need validation from what the world says, and we get obsessed with ourselves because the world tells us to be obsessed with ourselves. And we think that that is the best way to live life, but it is a very lonely one. And no one wants to talk about that. Social media teaches us to stay this way. But I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to take care of myself in a way that I need to, inwardly. But I want to be more about, my family. Less time looking at what society says I should do and being obsessed with that, and thinking more about like, how can I better the lives of the people around me? I don't want to waste time obsessing over what I should look like or who I should be based off of society standards. Because that's what's so messed up about it, is that we're not even obsessing over ourselves for the right reasons. Like some people, they say they obsess over obtaining a physical goal, but they're doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it because they talked to their doctor and their doctor said this, and now and by obsessing, I don't mean it doesn't always have to be a negative connotation. It just means that that's all you're focused on. You're obsessed with reaching this fitness goal because you know that it'll be healthy for you and stuff like that. And that's great. That type of stuff is awesome. But I'm talking about, again, that YouTuber that said, I got life to live, so I left that relationship. Okay, so that's the truth. You really broke up because you just wanted to go out and act buck wild. You see what I'm saying? Again, seeing how other cultures are more about, doing something for, doing it for your family and for others around you. this is a really like weird example that I'm going to throw in there really quick. I'm going to take two girl groups, okay? Fifth Harmony and Blackpink. Oh my God, so different. Obviously, one's from South Korea. When they're not all from South Korea, Blackpink, but that is where the band is based out of. Fifth Harmony, America. Fifth Harmony, everyone knows like Fifth Harmony, like they all went into X Factor as solo artists and they became a group. But you could tell by just looking at every performance, everything they do, they were always trying to outshine each other because they went and wanted being solo artists and that's what they wanted to be, which, okay, I get it, right? You didn't want to be in a group. But at the end of the day, like you are in a group. So make it awesome. You're still getting access to be a part of music, you're, in the industry. And maybe when you all disband amicably in the future, then you can make your solo music. No, they were always not on the same page. And then Camila left the band and then that was a hot mess. That wasn't amicable. And then their album sales tanked and they all disbanded and it was just a hot mess. But, I'm a huge Blackpink fan, okay? And their documentary, I think it was Jisoo, she's a member of Blackpink, and, they all went into pretty much their company, YG Entertainment. They do this, they would do like these casting calls where they pretty much train young artists to rise up and get into the industry, and they put Blackpink together. They were all friends and stuff, but they put them together, and Jisoo said something on the lines of like, we never get jealous or want to be in the spotlight or anything because we know that we all have a place. And to me, like, again, like, I don't know the culture in South Korea, but I would imagine, again, not being a part of, at least like North America and stuff like that, that like that culture is just different, that they believe they're a part of something versus needing to be solo. Even though they've each done like their solo endeavors, but that's just them being creative and branching out. But they all know that they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And I feel like that's really our purpose as humans. We're all a part of something bigger than ourselves. We're all meant to be in community. We're all meant to be together. We're all a part of something. So we don't have to like put each other down, or we don't have to be so focused on who we are and changing ourselves and all this type of stuff, because we're all a part of something more. I just had to throw that example in there, and I also love Blackpink, so I had to just talk about them for 2 seconds. But I hope this makes sense. Again, seeing how other cultures, they think about their roles in family and community instead of thinking about how they can feel validated and lift up their egos and stuff. I wish that, we could be more like that in Western civilization. That people weren't so mean and isolated into themselves and obsessed with what they had going on so much that they kind of rule out other people and other people are just pushed to the side. And, the truth is, I think that people will be more happier. I think people will be way more happier if they weren't so obsessed with themselves. And people wouldn't hate themselves as much because they wouldn't be comparing themselves to other people. Comparing yourself is also being self-absorbed, and self-obsessed, because you're constantly looking at yourself and how you're not enough. But what if I told you that you are, and you're just a part of something bigger, and you are just different, than the person next to you, and you don't have to, put yourself or put anybody on a pedestal. We're just all a part of, this large community, I guess you could say. And that we should be supporting each other and not so much, again, focusing so much on ourselves and, we got to live that life. Well, we could be focusing on our loved ones and doing the best that we can for them. We all have our own individual purposes, and we don't have to hate ourselves and we don't have to dog ourselves down just to see what that is and to constantly obsess over it. Because I know I used to obsess over my purpose and all that type of stuff. But I didn't realize that, like, my purpose, at least right now, is being a great wife and mother and giving to my family. And that is so empowering. It's more empowering because people say, oh, it's empowering to focus or to just me. What? But how? You're just going to constantly be chasing something because we can't fulfill ourselves. And again, I wish that this was talked about more. I feel like nobody wants to admit it, when they are self-absorbed, and no one wants to talk about it. But I think that it is definitely something that I would challenge you to think about. In what ways in your life do you think that you have been self-absorbed or like obsessed with yourself that it took away from you being able to love and bless other people? And I'm not perfect. We all, have issues with this, I think, and especially living in this culture. And I still challenge myself daily to channel more energy in how I can support and love my family and my friends. I think all in all, if we did that, again, we'd be more happier because we would know that our validation doesn't come from being obsessed with either what society says that we should be and how society says we should be more me, but being about other people, I feel like it's less pressure. That we don't have to be perfect. We just have to love. And that's the biggest point of all. But I feel like I kind of went on a rampage talking about this, but that's kind of my point here. And I just challenge you today to, again, think about how you can not obsess over yourself as much and just think about how you can love other people and that be the focal point. And, if you made it to the end of this podcast, I definitely encourage you to share this podcast with somebody, not just because it's awesome, but because I think that more people need to hear this message and hear that, we need to love others more and stop being so consumed with yourself. Because society is not going to tell it to you. But again, we made it to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much. And thank you for hearing me ramble about something that's just been on my mind. I feel like this is definitely one of the podcasts where it's just something that's been on my mind and I just wanted to kind of regurgitate my thoughts out. So thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. The podcast is available on Apple, Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. And follow us at My So-Called Thoughts Pod and take up that challenge. And, if you're on Spotify, I'm going to try to propose a question because you can propose questions now, and feel free to leave an answer. Or if you have any opinion on this and you're listening to another platform, please leave a comment, a like, a review, and just let me know what you think about this concept. Do you think this makes any sense? And do you think that we live in a self-absorbed society and how we can change and move forward to love on others and build more community and be stronger, as a community and together? I would love to just know what you think, but I hope you're doing well wherever you are. My prayer for you today is just that I pray that wherever you are in your life, if you are in a place where you have been self-absorbed for the wrong reasons, then, just kind of consumed with self, that you will find a way to, of course, love and take care of yourself, but also be able to channel more energy into loving and supporting the people around you. In Jesus' name, amen. But thank you so much again for listening today. I hope you're well once again. And I just pray if you're going through hardships that you will find the strength and the wisdom to get through. But thank you once again. This is Sunray. I'm out. Peace.